10 years. And to be honest, it's really just a few developers. Most developers are trying to be cost effective. So now you're seeing a more upscale development, people putting in large windows, for instance, to bring in that light and reducing. So you then have to become your own energy officer, putting in LED bulbs and reducing your energy costs, watching how much is going through your meter and all. So I think for businesses and for individual households, you have to look at what is actually drawing your energy. If you have fridges and freezers, if you have large equipment, those are your real energy banks. Those are things that are really drawing out your power. And so it's being more energy efficient and realizing that not all appliances need to be on at the same time. Also educating your staff as well and letting them know that if we're not using something, we switch it off. Everyone has to become a bit more conscious and a lot more cost conservative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Boluwashokta. I completely agree with you. And as you said, the constant rise of fuel in this country is a challenge that needs to be addressed, and also solar is a stopgap to possibly address that. So on to you, Rotimi.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks to Boluwashokta for her comments already. I think she hit a lot of nails on the head. I would say that there are, even for a tailor, you can put a sewing machine on a solar system. I think it's just, to her point, it's just about sizing the system correctly. You know, a lot of people might see a 1 kVA solar solution and then say, okay, my sewing machine is only 500 watts, so let me put my sewing machine on the solar system. And then, as she said, you know, it takes a lot to start that thing up, and you're out. So I think good advice, you know, working with solar providers like Arnergy that actually care about your experience is something important as you look at using solar as a tool to address your energy needs at home. But just going into the energy efficiency topic, I have a meter in my house that typically shows me how much at any point in time I'm consuming in terms of electricity. I know there's a bunch of air conditioners in the house. This is not the traditional meter that's outside of the building. This is like the one that I have on my desktop that I can see where I am. And it sounds an alarm actually anytime we go above 5 kilowatts, for example. So everyone runs around the house trying to turn things off, right? And I would say you don't necessarily need that, but from looking at that data, we realize that myself and a lot of energy consumers typically don't use more than 10–20% of the appliances that are in the building. You know, so let's say the appliances in my building probably come up to 20 kilowatts. I'm typically using something in the range of 2 kilowatts on average, right? And I think that when we're looking at solar solutions as an option to address these needs, people should know that they should be trying to power their essential energy needs. There's nowhere in the world where people just leave air conditioners on 24/7. And the problem with us in Nigeria is when we do have access to energy, we use it inefficiently. So we should all be thinking about helping our own wallets as well. If you're a consumer that has a certain amount of income monthly, you should cut your clock according to your size and power what is essential: your fans, your TVs, your laptops, your fridges, and so on and so forth. If you have the ability to power 3 ACs, do it, right? So I think we should all be talking about right-sizing our energy needs according to the types of capacity that we have as well.
Thank you very much for that, Rotimi. And that alarm on your desk is funny because, I mean, I think a lot of us on the call are Nigerian and will be familiar with that alarm that sounds when NEPA brings back lights in your environment. So that's a very fantastic contribution into alternative energy that I actually think should be adopted for a lot of systems. And finally, Zansi, do you have any comments on this?
Thank you so much, Fadira. Thank you, Rotimi. Thank you, Boluwashokta. You've actually done a great deal of explaining the facts and dynamics that SMEs and households need to understand. But I would like to just even simplify it and just bring it, because one of the greatest challenges that we have, especially when we're trying to communicate energy efficiency, is actually the communication barrier, because most of us are either in the tech space or engineering space. And when we're talking about energy efficiency to them, it kind of just goes over their heads, you know. And then when we're even talking about the the vis-a-vis conventional energy sources to non-conventional. It's like, yeah, I just plug in, as to use Boluwashope's example, I just plug in my sewing machine, like, and it works. Like, their conditioning is not, the typical conditioning is not to understand that you can actually do more with less. You know, I think that's like the simplest way I would say to explain energy efficiency. Is like, you're doing, you know, to use less energy to do the same thing. So you're trying to explain to them that, yes, you can power this equipment, you can power this sewing machine with much less energy. And for high level, we would understand the contribution it does to the environment. We'll be like, oh yes, we understand that we're reducing global warming, we're this. But to them, to the household and the SMEs, I think, you know, we need to come down to their level and explain how much cost savings that they are going to have in having a more energy efficient system. You know, so I would say that would be like the facts and dynamics that I think we would start with, and then maybe like we go along, and then I'll try to break it down into these sweet spots where they are able to kind of assimilate like what we're talking about. Okay, Rotimi has his hand up.
Oh yeah, there was something you said that triggered me just now that I wanted to just pick up on, and just going back to my energy master's days. There's a big difference between energy efficiency and energy conservation. So even sometimes as professionals, when we two speak, we just lump everything up into energy efficiency. So speaking to what Zansi was saying just now, telling you to be more energy efficient in this day and age, the layman speak is, this your old air conditioner that's on the wall, that those ones that when all of us were born, they were still there. Please, you need to remove it and go and get one that is more energy efficient, because you cannot by yourself as a human being just make yourself more energy efficient. You have to use more energy efficient appliances. That is how you achieve energy efficiency as a consumer in your house today. You can influence, however, energy conservation, meaning I choose not to use my air conditioner for 10 hours. Instead, I choose to use it for 1 hour. I choose to use my fan for 1 hour instead of 6 hours. That's energy conservation. So I think we should also keep that in mind in terms of what the consumer can control and what they will have to use their pockets to go and use to access energy efficient appliances.
Thank you very much for that, Rotimi, and I absolutely agree with you on that point. But Zansi, back to you. So leveraging off what you just said, the next question I would like to ask you is, how can homes and businesses achieve optimal energy efficiency with traditional energy sources? And how effective are renewable energy sources at driving energy efficiency objectives compared to the traditional sources?
I'm sorry, I lost you for a few minutes there. Can you just repeat the question? Sorry.
Okay, no problem. The question was, can homes and businesses achieve optimal energy efficiency with traditional energy sources? And how effective are renewable energy sources at driving energy efficiency objectives compared to the traditional sources?
Okay, achieving optimal energy efficiency using traditional, you know, and that was one of the reasons why I started off with, you know, like we need to like even split it up, you know, understanding our energy sources between traditional and non-traditional sources, you know, and then now split it up into what are we trying to achieve with energy efficiency beyond economic savings. There's also the environmental aspect of it. So, you know, so in one sense, I would say like there is a limit to which you can achieve energy efficiency using traditional sources, because you can never remove the environmental component to it totally. You cannot, you know, unlike the renewable sources where you can actually control the environmental aspect of it as well as the economic aspect of it. So you're gaining cost savings, but you're also contributing to the bottom line in terms of environmental factors and all of that. You know, like if you look at you know, well, don't let me get into the AC aspect of it. Let maybe further along as we go along the line, I would, you know, like to explain how, you know, the AC links to all these aspects, both in terms of the economic aspect as well as the environmental aspect. So let me allow someone else to continue from there. You're muted, Fadira.
Thank you very much for that, Zanti. Okay, we'll move on to Rotimi with the question of, efforts have been put in place to standardize components in the renewable energy industry in Nigeria in an attempt to boost the inflow of direct foreign investment. What do you suggest some standardized impact metrics should be based on?
Yeah, so we're talking about boosting foreign direct investments into the renewable energy space in Nigeria. Is that correct? Okay. So if we have to work backwards, because who's ultimately paying for all of this, right? Who's absorbing the impact of all of this foreign is the end consumer, right? Whether you're a retail end consumer, being either a small business or a home or an owner or a renter, or a large business or an industrial, right? They are the ones that are voting with their naira as to, do I like what is going on or do I not like what is going on? And so the most important metric, I know that for all of us that we speak all these different languages and grammar and all this kind of stuff, we talk about energy efficiency and conservation, and we talk about the impact on the environment. Time and time again, selling solar systems to end consumers, the only thing they care about is the money that they are going to save. Can you help me with that or not? If you can't help me with that, we can't even start the conversation about how much noise the thing is making or how much impact on the environment I'm having, because I'm just trying to look out for myself right now. This country is way too hard, right? And interestingly, my team was out the other day. The Sunfi team was out the other day, and I just wanted to correct that. It's not Aspire. That was my old company, so I'm not sure how that happened, but they were out the other day and they were trying to sell systems to consumers or help them with their situation. And the guy just brings out his calculator and just says, look, I can buy this thing for 500K right now, right? My generator is costing me X amount per day. And that's how they think, right? Is, can you save me money today? They don't even have 3 years to wait for that savings to materialize. So if there's any way that we can help standardize payback metrics and simplify those metrics in a standardized way so that a lay person is looking at it and understands instantaneously that this thing is costing me X amount per day, my generator, and this one is costing me X amount per day. And somehow it's educated and disseminated and so on and so forth. I think that's a very important metric. And then, of course, for investors that care about the ESG aspects of this, we do need to look at how much CO2 that each consumer, each generator that is transitioned to solar, how much that is removing from the environment. That's thousands of pounds of CO2 annually. And so if you do that over millions of consumers, you're making a tremendous dent in the world from Nigeria, right? But the end consumer for sure doesn't care about that, and at least as a priority. So we need to understand where we're starting from and work backwards and move from there.
Thank you very much for that, Rotimi, and I'm in complete agreement. You do need to, so looking at the different aspects of it on the consumer side and the investor side, they do have very different priorities, let's say. Thank you very much for that. Boluwashokbe, this question is for you. So there has been a rise in hybrid system adoption, grid, solar, and generator, let's say, especially in Nigeria. So from your point of view and experience, do you think more people will start going completely off grid, my apologies, and why?
Okay, thanks for that question, Fadira. So I think one thing is that the grid is always going to be cheaper. You have economies of scale working for you there. You're able to produce in large amounts and disperse, so it's always going to be cheaper. It's the same way when you want to order a product from suppliers in China. If your order volume is 100, as compared to somebody that has 10,000, they're going to get a much cheaper price. Works the same way, can be applied the same way in generating electricity. So no, the grid is always going to be cheaper, and we're not going to see people go completely off grid. However, people in rural areas are already off grid. Areas where there's no plan for grid expansion in the next 10 years are already off grid and using generators. what we're going to see there is a slow progression towards solar, whether solar home systems or mini grids, because that's still going to be cheaper for them than using diesel or petrol power generators. For people in urban areas, what we're going to see is a mixture of the grid and of grid solutions, being solar systems. For those that can or want to take that experiment, some of them may retrofit their diesel generators to be gas powered. For anyone that is really brave and wants to experiment that way, you can see that option. But what we're going to see is actually a rise between people using their grid and off-grid solutions. Once you have that in place, I think the next step is going to see a lot more people relying on their renewable energy, their solar systems as compared to the grid systems. So I say that because, so I know Arnergy has this product, and I know someone that actually installed an Arnergy system, called the team up and got them to install. He was spending 180,000 every month on diesel and petrol NEPA to power his house. And with the Arnergy system, he's reduced that cost to 50,000 a month. That's over 70%. That's 130,000, to put it in numbers. That's a huge cost savings. So when we were having the disruptions with diesel and petrol, it's fuel scarcity, apart from wanting to fuel his car, he wasn't panicked about fueling his house. The other thing that I know that the system does for him is that during the day, when it's more efficient to use the system, even though there's supply from the grid, it switches off the grid, because now with discos being more efficient in terms of revenue collections and ensuring more houses are metered, you have your NEPA card running. So if it's more efficient during the day, when solar systems are the most efficient for you to, or more cost effective for you to be on your solar system, then it's going to switch to that as compared to being on the grid. At nighttime, if you've gotten a system that doesn't have the entire battery capacity and there's grid supply, then it will switch to grid supply. So we're going to see a lot more people be more cost efficient going forward. You're going to see people that can afford it go completely off diesel. So I think that's what I would say. We're going to go off diesel, we're going to go off petrol, and then it's going to be you balancing your NEPA and solar systems.
Thank you very much for that, Boluwashope. And you mentioned retrofitting of diesel generators. That is very interesting, because I did come across a case where, so as Rosemi mentioned, the client is always looking at the cost savings. So is it going to save me money today? And what their incentive was, they were looking at retrofitting some of their equipment actually, and that was their deciding factor, is the cost of retrofitting less than installation of solar. So completely in line with what you're talking about. Thank you very much for that. Let's go back to you, Rotimi. And with the question of how significantly has the rapid adoption of renewable off-grid solar energy solutions affected access to electricity across Africa? And what changes have you noticed, as well as what are the challenges to the adoption?
Yeah, so I'd say that off-grid solar, and typically when you say off-grid, there's this connotation that it means rural electrification. But to Boluwatifa's point, right, there's lots of people in urban areas that are literally, I think it was someone that we saw a few weeks ago that said he disconnected himself from the grid so that he could just focus on his solar system and live his life around that. So I think that people are making that choice. And there are many countries in the world, including in Africa, where renewable energy being delivered in an energy as a service manner is actually cheaper than electricity from the grid. And we have to keep in mind that we're in an environment in which interest rates are going up globally. The macro environment suggests that a lot of access to supply chain is becoming more expensive. So even the traditional sources of power are becoming more expensive over time. And it must become more expensive in order for you to overcome the hurdle because you have so much backlog and so much inefficiency in the system. So it does give renewables a chance, and off-grid a chance to actually come and serve consumers and get below that. So what we're seeing is that I think millions of consumers, at least starting in Nigeria and other parts of the country, are gaining access to electricity that have never had it before, whether it's through mini grids or whether it's through standalone solar systems. And I think that there's a good partnership between private companies such as Arnergy, and also governments trying to obviously cater to their constituents that, look, oh, we don't have lights, we're not going to vote for you. I think that was very interesting to see, the vice president of Nigeria and so on and so forth. I used to work with Siemens, and I literally was in a meeting with him once where I think Dami Ogumbi, the former RIA CEO, she said, this is the future of Nigeria's energy system. This is the thing that's going to move the needle fastest. And you saw the VP, the former VP, how he engaged with regards to off-grid renewable energy over the years, and how he has set the tone with regards to the future of that and Nigeria's energy planning. It is now part of our blueprint, and it's part of the blueprint of many countries. South Africa is dealing with a very bad power problem right now, and they are talking about a just energy transition now, right? And that of course considers whether it's going to be affordable for people, but it also considers the speed of how do they get energy access to people. So across the continent, I would say that we are making a dent, but we have a very long way to go. And I think we'd like to see standalone solar solutions that are off-grid or grid-tied be just as important as mini grids, and then all of those things working together. And I think that the industrialized consumers will probably be the ones that utilize the grid the most, right? So a lot of retail consumers, distributed consumers, residential, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they will probably have solar in their vicinity within the next 5-10 years. It will be covered all over the place. The grid will be complementary to that. And those two things will have to work together to power the future of the continent.
Thank you very much for that, Rotimi. Very insightful. On to you, Zanti. I would like to ask, what level of contribution do local businesses and startups add to driving the off-grid and renewable energy adoption and developments across Nigeria?
Okay, according to the Labour Organization statistics, 48% of our national GDP from 2022 was by SMEs. So that shows that they are literally the backbone of our economy, and like Rotimi already said, we need to make this matrix understandable, simple for them. And that's why I say, they don't understand. We understand, they don't understand the environmental impact and they being more efficient, but they understand the cost savings, right? So we make this matrix more simpler, and that's why I call the sweet spot. So the sweet spot for me will be the knowledge gap for SMEs and business. There's also design elements to energy efficiency, which deals with the interaction with the space. And then there's the equipment technology, that is where we come in. And then there's also the management, which is the controls, where Rotimi was talking about, where he has a control system that shows him what he's consuming as per time. Another element to that part will definitely be big businesses and government. We also have a responsibility. So I think we would focus more on the we're going to focus definitely on the energy efficiency in terms of cost savings and economic value adds, and then we would also focus on the environmental impact this has. But for the SMEs and the small businesses, they would definitely be more concerned with the economics of it, the cost savings that they're going to get. So one thing is, first, like what you're doing now with this webinar, making this information accessible and understandable, simpler, and they're able to understand that, then also Arnergy has actually done a lot. I'm glad to say that Daikin and Arnergy has been one of the companies, rather, Arnergy has been one of the companies that Daikin has partnered with in our 2050 goals in terms of energy efficiency, being one of and so independent testing has been done with Arnergy's profile as well as Daikin units. So that way an SME can understand that, look, you can power your ACs with Because that's the misconception. There's a lot of misconception around energy efficiency. Most times people say, oh no, it can't do this, it can't do that. It's only for light bulbs. I know there was a time, Rotimi, everybody wanted it was only light bulbs. You couldn't even use your television with your solar, But now there's a lot more to be done. And to be sincere with you, the Nigerian business space, our SMEs, they're quite receptive. Everybody wants what they're going to eat, in quote unquote. Everybody needs to know. And once you're able to communicate that aspect, I think they are going to be I think they're already driving this. I can remember 10, 15 years ago, this was not even on the forefront of the conversation. And now we're talking about it. I believe that SMEs and households will actually be the driving force. The government, yes, the government is doing a lot. I know there has been some policy interventions and with different bodies, and partners to bring energy efficiency into the forefront of the conversation. So I know there's lots to be done, but I actually believe that we've come a long way and there's still a lot to be done. So SMEs will definitely be the driving force. And, I think continuing this kind of conversations on a periodic, and regular and consistent level is also going to help. Having this kind of conversations will also help towards driving that.
Thank you very much, Zancy. Both you and Rotimi have actually spoken a lot about educating the masses, and that is a very important aspect in order to drive adoption. I just wanted to mention that Arnergy do host things like installer programs and educational things of the nature that you can sign up to and learn about the space, products, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much for that, Zancy. Moving on to you, Boluwashokpe, and apologies, this is a rather long-winded question, but here we go. It's many recently identified flexible financing and energy efficient appliances as major needs for consumers switching to solar. Are there other challenges or need gaps across the renewable energy value chain that local businesses within or outside the energy sector can address? And a follow-up to this question is, can you share the insights into ongoing efforts in grassroots off-grid solar projects and what financing models are accessible?
Okay, let me think of how best to answer this. So I would say this from more of a macroeconomic perspective, and then I'll drill down to businesses a bit. I think companies like Arnergy have done significantly well. Question you asked wrote to me about attracting FDI. A number of companies in Nigeria have been able to do that, have been able to be acquired as well. They've attracted funding from VCs, they've attracted funding from government bodies, both national and national as well. But there is still a lot more to be done. And to be very plain, I think that we need a large bulk of inventory financing for us to see an actual scale in solar systems, especially for households and businesses in the urban areas. For SMEs, there has to be a large bulk of local financing. And at the same time, there has to be very effective risk management tools. So that's like having a partial risk guarantee or having a first loss fund. That helps for financiers that are already interested in the sector and just need a bit more of assurance. And both of them paired together, having that source of inventory financing, that's working capital paired along with a risk management tool, is going to be able to leapfrog the sector, because to be honest, that's when you're going to be able to employ models like energy as a service and pay as you go. Because what a lot of companies realize is you come to the market with 100 systems. If you put the model of 20% upfront, people pay that 20% and start repaying. Your repayment period is another 12 to 24 months. You cannot wait 12 to 24 months for you to recoup all the money and then order again. You need that constant flow of money coming in. Pointing to FDI, one of the things is you're paying back this loan, or whatever equity the company has, the entity has in your company. Your receivables are in naira. So your funding has to be in naira, or has to be a mixture of naira and dollar. And that's why I said macroeconomic, because as until a time where our exchange rate is amalgamized, is put into one, we're going to need hedging tools. We don't have any hedging tool at all. What happens is that the price that you loaned at, which could have been 500 naira to $1, is not going to be the price, that is not going to be the same exchange rate they're going to be repaying at. So those are macroeconomic issues that are out of reach of the solar home system companies. The areas that I think that companies within the off-grid and outside the off-grid sector can focus on is distribution, sales, and just as you said, training. Those are quote unquote low-hanging fruits. And I would say marketing as well, communication. Those are low-hanging fruits that are not necessarily the expertise of energy providers, but are enhancing to their businesses. There are some fantastic companies doing fantastic work, but you also have to look internally and say, where do our strengths lie? If your strengths actually lie in distribution, could you step out of the value chain of bringing in the systems and just become a major distributor for solar home system companies? That's going to move the sector forward. That's going to leap forward. If you, as an entity outside the sector, you have a sales mechanism that works very efficiently, you are able to cover the 6 geopolitical zones and even potentially expand to the other West African countries. Why not leverage your system? Why not leverage that system that you have and support energy access? I think there's a lot to be explored in terms of partnering with other sectors that are development driven, that are very focused on reaching the bottom of the pyramid, which is, rural areas, more remote areas, and that's a cause for expansion. To speak to what is being done in the grassroots, the major projects that have focused on rural electrification is the solar power project and also the World Bank NEP project, which is more targeted towards the developer. Once you are an NEP verified developer, you can take some money off solar power, install the systems. NEP goes to verify, and then your systems, and then you're funded the grant component back, which is great because we've now seen an increase in companies being able to move forward since then. There's still a lot more that needs to be done. I mean, that's grants, that's government, that's international bodies, but we still need private sector to come in. The two models that are, I think, most efficient is pay as you go, being able to pay a little every month. That's done very well in more rural areas that are not necessarily low income, but people with seasonal incomes. So if you're a farmer, for instance, the time that you actually receive bulk payments is during harvest season. You don't sell the entire year round. So if you had a large lump sum to pay at once and it was outside your season, that would be hard. But having that bi-weekly, bi-monthly, bi-weekly, weekly repayment system has been very efficient. And also as well as energy as a service. And this is more for SMEs that are more in urban areas. Instead of me, and a number of companies do this, and I think Arnergy has the products as well. If I'm a business, if I'm a consultancy, if I'm actually a bakery, whatever, my business isn't energy. It isn't having to figure out how to manage my generator and when to call WASU to maintain it and all. If I have a company that they bill me every month and say, this is how much energy you spent this month, and this is your bill, they are in charge of maintaining the system. That works for me as a business. If it also reduces how much I'm spending, absolutely fantastic. So those are the things I see married together. The macroeconomics, there's very little that companies can do. They can engage with government. But I think, yes, those are within and outside the sector. Marketing, sales, I mean, they sound like small things, but marketing, sales, and communications, if you can step into these lines, it's going to blow up massively. And just for those models, pay as you go and energy as a service, those are the models that we're seeing impact and traction on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oluwasepe. And definitely agree with you. Like you mentioned as well, financial models, Arnergy does offer some of the ones you mentioned, like lease to own. So you can, if you're interested in that, you can leverage what some of these companies are offering to you. So I just wanted to interject and say that.
Jump in there real quick. Is that
Oh,
okay?
absolutely. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to respond to what Boluwashope said, because she basically described my business for the first few minutes, right? And obviously, we're just coming out, but I think we used to be a solar installation company, my co-founders and I, and we were doing installations from north to south to east to west, all these different quality of products, the Indian products, the Chinese products, good ones, lithium, lead. We saw everything, customers call you New Year's Eve and say, hey, this thing's not working, or I need help type of thing. And you see all the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the good things as well that solar does for consumers. And we recognize that the banks as well wanted to support this transition, but they're also afraid of those bad things that they don't know that can go wrong, the technical risk involved. So you as a solar provider, you're going to the banks all the time to say, hey, we need help. There's lots of consumers. You can see them everywhere. If you just go outside and you step outside, you trip over a customer, right? But then they look at you and say, okay, well, let's have this conversation. It takes 6 months. It doesn't end up anywhere where you actually tap into the loan. Only a few companies, right, were able to do that. And that's not going to help us achieve scale to move millions of people off of petrol or diesel generators to solar, right? So what was the missing link? Something was missing around being able to help banks dimension, understand, and feel comfortable, as Boluwashope said, with the piece of the risk that they are not good at underwriting, right? Are you sure this thing is going to work? Because if the customer feels it's not working, it's not a question about whether they will default. They will not pay you. Whether you have pay as you go, whatever, it doesn't matter. They won't pay you for it, right? And so that's what we came to market to do, right? Is we qualify the end consumers, make sure that an Arnergy customer actually not only has the capacity to pay, but the system that Arnergy is giving the consumer, we just double check that. That's a trust pilot for the consumer. The consumer feels more comfortable. It creates a higher quality transaction that we then take to the financial institutions and say, hey, we've already done all the legwork. And guess what? Don't be afraid. We will make sure that you feel comfortable with a first loss, that if something goes wrong, we've got your back. And we post that capital up front. So this is something that is an innovation that is coming to the market, and it exists in other countries, but has been lacking in the market that needed it the most, because we have the largest distributed energy market in the world is Nigeria, bar none, right? So why is it that we don't have the financial ecosystem that can help Arnergy scale its solution to millions of consumers? And I have to say, I'm very encouraged by what we are hearing from local capital that is ready to back this, right? So before it was CNI and it was mini grids, and today all of them are zeroing in on the urban story, the peri-urban story, because those are the people that are powering the economy and are the link even to the informal economy in the rural area and so on and so forth. So I think it's coming. The capital has to be cheap, it has to be long enough, and it has to be patient enough, and so on and so forth. But I believe it is coming from what we are seeing, and I think there's going to be a big transition over the next few years.
Thank you very much for that, Rotimi, and absolutely agree. It was recorded. I don't quite remember the source at the moment, but we know a lot of industries received a very negative impact from the COVID virus. And funnily enough, the renewable solar industry is one that actually saw some growth and is continuing to grow year on year. So like Rotimi said, and I'm sure as well, my panelists were very excited for what is to come in the solar industry. So before we move on to the questions, I'd just like to pull up a poll for the audience, get you involved a little bit and just kind of answer some of these questions that you can see on the screen. So the first one is, so what will you say is the rate of renewable energy adoption in your immediate circle? Number 2 is, based on your experiences, what is the primary reason preventing people in your immediate circle from adoption? Some of our panelists have gone over quite a number of reasons why, but I'm sure you will have your own. And number 3, which qualities do you find most appealing about renewable energy sources? So I'll just give you a few moments to answer that. Whilst you do that, my next question will be directed at Zansi. So as I mentioned, Zansi works with Daikin, Middle East and Africa. How do Daikin energy efficient, how do Daikin energy efficient HVAC systems and equipment help consumers mitigate excessive spending and achieve their goals of switching to solar?
Okay, thank you so much, Federa. I think you if I wanted to reframe that question, I would just say, how did Daikin meet energy? I'll just say, what was the road of from Daikin to energy? For us at Daikin, we consider air conditioning a necessity. It's not a luxury. Typically, most people's mindset is that, but when you look at medical, when you look at productions, industry, some commercial sectors, they require air conditioning for operations, so it is not considered a luxury. It's a necessity, sorry. And, based off of that, Daikin has been in production of air conditioning for almost 100 years. We'll be 100 years next year, so maybe we'll be inviting Rotimi Boluwashokwe Fadera to come and celebrate with us. Being 100 years is such a big deal, and we've been the forefront of leading technologies in the HVAC industry, especially as regards energy efficiency and environment. So we have at Daikin a 2025 plan, we have a 2030 plan, and we have a 2050 plan. And over the years, we've been seeing ourselves progressively taking initiatives in that action. Some of the things are not even things that the consumer typically sees. For us at Daikin, we have about 106 production bases around the world, trying to bring our production closer. So we started out in Japan, but we're trying to bring our production closer to the consumers. There we're reducing our global footprint. Consumers do not see that part. And that's why I said there's an aspect that big business and government will take care of in terms of this drive for energy efficiency. And there's an aspect that, SMEs and households have to take care of eventually. Now, even beyond that, for us at Daikin, we have invested over $300 million in our own innovation center in Japan. And this is an open collaboration center where different professions, chemical engineers, biologists, all of them come together to innovate and think. And because of that, we've had quite remarkable success in that, in terms of, especially when you're talking about in the HVAC industry. Daikin is the leading forefront for the R32 gas, which is the single phase gas, zero global warming potential. Most people in the HVAC industry know this, and that's why I like when Rotimi said we need to make this information understandable. Some people don't understand. They just say, why did we, the phase out of R22 gas was met with a lot of resistance. Other European countries had run it out, but Nigeria was kind of the one of the last countries, because people could not understand, why do you want to phase out? But this was something that after a certain period, it was more because they were not able to get the spare parts any longer. That was one of the reasons why they started dropping it. Now we've moved from R22, we've moved to R410. Now Daikin, we're even ahead, we're at R32. This is available here in Nigeria. Please note this, that's one of the systems that Arnergy has at their facilities for testing. So it's the R32 model. And then beyond that, we also have the inverter compressor. Most people, we've all seen it. We've all heard, oh, inverter AC, but most people don't even understand what's the technology behind it. Why did we go with inverter? Why did we switch from the typical compressor AC to the inverter AC? And this is still being that big businesses need to be responsible for their actions as well, and that's one of the things. We are actually taking responsibility for certain things. So some of these things are not even consumer driven. These things are industry. They have our own vision at Daikin driven. It's not driven by the consumer. The consumer does not even know. They just come into the market and one day they say, oh, there's inverter AC. What's the inverter AC? Why are we changing from the non-inverter AC to the inverter AC? This consumes up to 32% less than the inverter AC, based on the fact that the compressor is a single scroll compressor. So it's not doing the same thing as the non-inverter AC. It's not consuming the same energy, and then you now come even deeper into the VRV technology, which was championed solely by Daikin. And this is the model that you can have multiple indoor units on one outdoor unit. Every single time we go to, and that's one of the things why I keep emphasizing on the communication gap. Over the last 2 years, we've been interacting with every single person possible along the chain line in terms of the building sector. We're interacting with architects, we're interacting with developers, because they can actually, they are stakeholders. So even though they don't make the final purchase decision, they can actually affect by like the fact of lack of knowledge. So you meet an architect and you're telling him that you can have up to 50 units inside and it's just one outdoor unit that you're going to be powering. It sounds like outer space, you know, like what, and these things are not like out of this world. We have reference sites here in Nigeria, the George Hotel, Ebony Life, Nestor Towers is on Daikin. We have a number of projects, Landmark, just speaking in Lagos and even outside Nigeria. But when they hear it for the first time, it sounds like, for want of a better phrase, you know, are you whining me? Like, are you trying to tell me that like you can have 50 indoor units, up to 50 indoor units, and you're powering only one outdoor unit? Obviously, it's not one-to-one. So that means your efficiency is going to be less than, you know, it's going to be more, sorry, as in instead of having 50 units one-to-one. And you're seeing there are early adopters in every technology. We understand that. So we have a number of early adopters. People have had their Daikin, the VRV technology on their projects as far back as 5. The earliest project we had in Nigeria, we have it up to 8 years ago, and it's still functioning. Eco Pearl on Eco Atlantic is on Daikin VRV technology. And now we've even gone beyond that for us at Daikin, beyond the VR. So we're already energy efficient on the VRV technology, but the newest model of the VRV is now VRT. And that means that we're also regulating our energy efficiency with seasonal. So this is a seasonal efficiency. So that means that when it's in the night, you need less, you know, for every 4-degree drop in temperature on the outside, there's also a 1% efficiency on the inside. So we're actually taking, the refrigerant is actually taking into consideration the temperature outside. So look at that. Like, so that's one of the things that we like about, that I think I'm very passionate about Daikin, is like, we're kind of ahead. And I think basically because we've invested so much in R&D. So it's like we just have some people sitting somewhere just thinking about how to make it better. Maybe that's what we need to infuse into the Nigerian government. Now for here in Nigeria is, and that's why you see Daikin Middle East and Africa for me. And this building, one of our pride and joys in Daikin is our headquarters in Dubai. And I think I shared the picture a little late. I actually wanted to show it up, but it was a little late for the Arnergy team. Our building in Dubai is totally off-grid, and the Dubai government has given us numerous accolades for this. Totally off-grid, fully solar panel. And one of the reasons why I say that is there's also a factory inside, because that's why I said the misconception people have is, oh, you can only power this and this. We have a factory in that building. It's a 3-level building. So there's a factory, there's an academy, and there are offices. So the offices is at the top level, the factories at the lowest level, and the academy, the training room, and all of that is at the middle level. And this building is totally off-grid, using solar panels totally and on the VRV technology. But we also have controls, and that's why I spoke to the sweet spot will also have to be management, which Rotimi has on his table, but we have it on a larger scale. So we also have controls that also show us at every time T, and that way we're able to recalibrate and make the building more energy efficient, to know which area is consuming more, which area is consuming less, and make like adjustments based on that. We always have an open invitation. That's one thing I can actually say. We have an open invitation to anybody that is in Dubai to come to our academy, to come and see what we've done there, because it's more like a showcase for us. But we also have more coming soon. I know Fadera is privy to that. We're actually bringing a little bit of the Daikin experience to Nigeria. We may not be able to showcase everything, but we're going to have our experience center opening in May in Victoria Island, and Arnergy is going to be featured there. So the way it's going, we've tried to bring a bit of Daikin Dubai to Nigeria is we're going to have an experience center as well, showing our different solutions and showing the spaces that it can be used in. Now, one of those spaces is dedicated to an energy solution to show that you can actually have the Daikin units on energy solutions. So I'm sure at the end of this or at some time in the future, Arnergy will definitely do like an invite to Daikin in VI, and then so we've done quite a lot, and we're still doing more. You know, like I said, we have a 2025 plan, 2030 plan, 2050 plan. Some of these are still just even the 20 amongst the 2030 plan, not to even now talk about the 2050 plan. And we've seen quite great success. There are a number of early adopters, which is usually the case. We've seen prestigious homes in VI. We've seen quite a number of developers that are really, really passionate about cutting down on their costs. And that's why I said big businesses to need to see it. And like that's why I also agreed with Rotimi that the environmental awareness part may not be relatable to them, but at least once we start with the cost savings, once we start with showing them, you know what, these are your life cycle cost analysis, this is the comparison data, this is our ER rating, and then this is, we have well-published from the Arnergy, their own report showing Daikin on the, I think, Arnergy 500X, showing how long it would take to use up the battery power, showing the power consumption. We have 2 independent testers. Arnergy is one of them. We have other testings being done with our product, and we're extremely proud that, you know, Daikin is really leading the forefront when we talk about energy solutions. And that's why I said we're interacting with every single person on the chain line. We're from architects to the energy producers or the like Arnergy. So I think that actually addresses some of the things. So when we open it in Victoria Island, this is one of our centers. We have quite a number, but this is the experience center that's coming up soon. We have our trainings, and that's another thing. When we speak to the management of the management of your systems in terms of energy efficiency, we're going to speak to maintenance. Typically, we've heard Nigerians don't have maintenance culture. I do not agree with this. I think, you know, like we need to keep saying, the more we say it, the more it becomes ingrained in our culture. Nigerians do not maintain, you know. So we're heavily invested in maintaining as well. We have our after sales and service support right here in Nigeria. And we have trainings. We have trainings for technicians going on all year round. And this is free from Daikin. So we have our units at Ikeja and in Victoria Island, where technicians can literally walk in, interact with the system. They are the, you know, the training systems are different from the system. So when you get your units, it's typically coupled, but these ones are exposed, so you can actually interact with every single aspect of the systems, from the PCBs to the controls to the compressors. So it's a lot of work, but we're extremely proud of what we've done over the last, you know, 5 to 8 years that we've been in Nigeria.
Absolutely, and you should be proud of it. It's a lot of work and very good work to say. Thank you very much for that. But also leveraging off what you said about maintenance, Arnergy does also provide maintenance on all our systems. So I think that is a narrative that needs to be changed amongst us. Like you said, Nigerians don't maintain. So once we, first of all, stop saying that and adopt a more proactive and advertise a more proactive culture of maintenance, then I think we'll start seeing a change in attitude. So these are the results from the poll. As you can see, about 10 to 20% of you have answered that there is an adoption of solar in your immediate circle. Okay, as everyone has mentioned, cost is the driving factor for a lot of people. As you can see, high cost of acquiring renewable products is one of the deterring factors for a lot of people. Like Rotimi said as well, we're seeing a lot more investments into the space, and hopefully locally that will accelerate in the coming years. And number 3, the question was, which qualities do you find most appealing about renewable energy sources? The highest response was reliable and standard backup power supply. I mean, especially considering the fact that a lot of us are in Nigeria, we know that we have an unreliable power system, especially grid, and you have to rely on your generators. So yes, solar is a perfect choice for reliable and standard backup power as well. And we're also seeing an increase and a better development of solar storage. So whilst the sun is out, we can use our panels perfect during the day, but during the night, that's another issue. So we're seeing an improvement of the storage solutions, and hopefully that will increase adoption in the industry. I can see Rosimi, your hand is up.
Yeah, I wanted to react to the results there. Is that
yeah, go ahead.
Do you know how many, do you know what percentage of like the 100 or so people online responded or no?
If I can pull that back.
No worries, but because it kind of, it's weird. I didn't expect to, so maybe that's an indicator that consumers, because one would have expected to see the cost savings as the number one benefit that people are, I can't remember whether it was phrased as looking to or whether they're experiencing, right? So if we phrase it from a perspective of a benefit that they're experiencing and that the cost savings wasn't the top choice, then that would mean that people are saying to us, like, we don't think actually that we're experiencing the cost savings. But I think maybe there's a misconception there because the thing that was rated number one there was the energy access, essentially, which that makes sense as well, right? Like, I'm trying to get this so I can have more access to energy. I would have expected to see cost savings above the noiseless piece. So that didn't occur to me that the noise from the generator seems, at least for this audience online, even more important than cost savings. So that's something I feel like we have to unpack a little bit and understand more as we move forward. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Rosimi. Absolutely. But I mean, of course, generator, especially if you live in an environment where you have a lot of residential, in fact, not even residential, a lot of houses, businesses, next to people, then the accumulated noise, yeah, it's this world. Yeah. Okay. Moving on, well, staying with you, Rosimi, I would like to ask, how are Sunfire and similar clean tech finances currently serving households and businesses? And what additional opportunities will be open to consumers from Sunfire as you scale operations? Yeah, so good question. And I think I touched on it a bit in just kind of responding to what Buluashapa said earlier on. So if you're a household or you're a business and you're thinking about how to make a transition to solar, and you're looking at, making sure you have a good experience with it, because there are many solutions and we see this thing every day. You can go on many places online and you can enter one chance with solar. If you go and buy the wrong piece of equipment, it may look cheap today. And this is, I have to say to my people in Nigeria, this is something that we're very guilty of. We vote with our wallets on very cheap things that end up costing us a lot of money down the line. So it's the same penny wise, is it pound foolish? I don't know what the equivalent is for Naira, maybe kobo wise, Naira foolish, right? And I'm telling you from our data, we see we're tackling this thing right now where we're saying to this consumer, hey, look, the Arnergy solution, you're not going to have a headache with this thing, right? And the customer starts comparing it to some cheap lead solution that they saw online, which we know there's not going to be good aftercare services. And guess what? Customers complain about aftercare services when it comes to solar all the time. It creates a bad reputation when the customer is out there. The thing is, maybe it needs just a top up of solar panel cleaning or whatever, and there's no one there to help them. This is why we try and tell them, hey, work with Arnergy and so on and so forth. And so one of the things that we have done is, I would say, have one of the most innovative payment plans for the Arnergy technology. And I can tell you there was a level of deposits that it was hard to move the Arnergy technology. And once Arnergy and Sunfire had looked at that together and we brought it down, the thing took off, right? So I would say we need to be very conscious about what we're asking people to pay upfront to access a solution that they will need to gain trust with over time. Because many of these people are just accessing solar for the first time.
They've heard good and they've heard bad stories. The payment plan is a gateway to increase trust for the solar customer. And when they experience the Arnergy solution, my best friend uses it. So my goddaughter, I entrusted Arnergy to power her life, essentially. And now he's looking to go from 5 to 15 or 10 kilowatts because he said, hey, I have another baby that's coming, and so on and so forth. So you can grow with this. So how Sunfi is helping there is, if you're a consumer that is trying to make that transition to a solar solution, as was registered in one of the questions, the upfront cost is going to be a problem. Unless you're part of the 1 or 2% of Nigerians that can bring out the money and pay cash. I know I'm not one, right? I would also need that kind of help. Then don't stress yourself running around, going to the banks and getting rejected and so on and so forth. If you do believe you have the payment profile, you can register on Sunfi and we will match you to Arnergy solution and we will help you pay for it over a 36-month period. We have the longest payment plan tenor for Arnergy solution, and that's what has made it accessible for a lot of people that would not have been able to access it. And we give a 10% deposit upfront. Nobody else is going to do that for you, right? And so and we also do that with other technologies as well, but I would say for businesses, people that are looking for quality solar solutions that are going to last and they're not going to have a headache with, we also recommend very aggressively the Arnergy technology because it also gives us peace of mind. Because I don't want you to default on my payment plan. And because if you default, then you will not have the experience and you will not refer other consumers. And so we all get into this spiral in the industry. So I would say that Sunfi can help make sure that Arnergy is giving you quality. Arnergy can help make sure as well that the customer has a great experience, and the payment plan will be there to grease the wheels and make sure that consumers get the access. So businesses, medium, small, large businesses, micro enterprises as well can benefit from this technology. And I would say that the financing is really just a pathway to make it more accessible, knowing that someone else is there, right? That you can also call up and say, hey, I can't reach this guy right now. Can you help engage Arnergy or whatever the case may be? And it works both ways. So that's how we collaborate together to make sure that the customer's experience is completely different than if you just go online, pick up the phone and call one guy to come and do one installation that you will never see him again after it's happened. So yeah.
Absolutely agree with you, Rotimi. Thank you very much. Hi, I can see a number of hands raised in the audience. If you could please just drop your questions in the Q&A box, that would be great. But thank you very much for that, Rotimi. And as you said, it's almost like a dual trust road sort of thing. And funnily enough, when we experience defaulters on our side, we have some technology that can automatically switch off the system. And once they no longer have access to power, I know it's to forget is human. So once they no longer have that access, the payment comes instantly. So again, as trust builds, the system can move smoothly as opposed to that stagnant, discombobulated motion that you did describe before. And I would like to move on to my last question. And this is for all panelists, but I would like to start with you, Boluwasepe. What will be your crucial advice to all the participants on setting and achieving their 2023 energy goals?
Okay. So I would say very plainly, two things. The energy mix in Nigeria, what the government has put forward, there's going to be an emphasis on gas and renewables. Oil is still going to play a part, but it's definitely going to be reduced as compared to the last 50 years. But more importantly, when it comes to SMEs and households, subsidy is going in a matter of weeks. May 29th, it looks far away, but we're already at the end of March. April is going to fly like this, and we're going to be at May 29th. Really and truly, the government doesn't have enough to continue to pay for subsidy. We've said for years that it's unsustainable, but now it's really not going to be possible anymore. And you're looking at 350 naira per liter of petrol, if not more. So if you are in a good area where there's great connectivity and your backup is a diesel or petrol generator, the best time for you to have done this would have been yesterday. The next best time for you to do this will be today. So if you're in a good area, good grid connectivity, you have maybe 15 hours of light a day. For those extra hours, switch from using a diesel or petrol generator and get yourself a solar system. Even if you don't have batteries, even if you don't have the capacity for batteries yet, these are modular systems. So if you can start with, even if it's as small as 1 kilowatt today, 10 kilowatts today, you can build up on it, do it. If you're in an area where there is very bad access to electricity, your transformer has blown, you haven't seen any of the discos come and fix it, whatever are the many issues that come along, you need to get a system as soon as possible. You need to get a solar system as soon as possible. If you say, oh my goodness, the upfront cost is so high, Sunfire has come into the market. They have a partnership with Arnergy. What seems really expensive now, further down the line, and I would say that all of us Nigerians are very guilty of this. You say, this one is cheaper now, let me buy it. But you don't realize that further down the line, it's going to cost you more to replace as compared to if you had invested in that asset. This is not a liability, it's not a luxury. You need energy to be efficient. I've always said that a bulb in a bush is of no value. Energy has value when it's being engaged in businesses, being engaged in households, in health centers, in agriculture. That's when we see the value of power, really and truly, and it's just going to make your business more efficient. One of the things we did during COVID, we did an analysis on 2 companies, one that switched to solar and one that didn't. The one that didn't switch their source of energy and continued with using petrol and diesel, they had a 67% cost increase to their business. That was a saving for the other company. And the estimations we made, I think the maximum we did was we thought that petrol would go as high as 200 to 20. We did not envisage 350. So if at 200 to 50, already 67% cost, you can imagine now. And energy is just one of your components. Cost of goods are going up as well. There's inflation, there's the potential of recession and a global depression as well. Whatever you can to do to tighten your belts now, to make that cost saving and ride out the next couple of years, I absolutely think you should. In a nutshell, it's start thinking, how can I be more energy efficient? How can I switch my source of backup? And it just first of all make the switch, because there's no 2 ways about it. Diesel and petrol are going up. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Boluwasepe, and you're absolutely right. So like she said, I encourage you to invest in solar. The initial cost might look high, but if you think about the cost savings down the line, as well as taking into account the fact that resources are rising, imports, all of that stuff, the prices are rising constantly, it is a smart investment to make now. Thank you very much for that, Boluwasepe. On to you, Zansi. Do you have any contributions?
Yes, thank you so much, Fadera. Boluwasepe, I think you and I need to sit and have a conversation. And even wrote to me when you were describing what Sunfire does, I was like, are you sure you're not describing Daikin Aces? Because you just kept hitting the nail on the head, especially when you said being cover wise and naira foolish. That's like my new slogan now, because especially I would not mince words and say Daikin is the cheapest in the market. We're not the cheapest brand in the market, and there's a reason behind that, and that is still being cover wise and naira foolish, where you think that you're saving in terms of buying some unbranded air conditioning solution, and then you're at the end of the day, you're actually hurting your pocket, more. So I would say I'm going to answer still in line with the way I broke it down earlier. And I would say the first part is actually having a goal. And that's where the knowledge gap comes in. And that's why it's very important for us to keep having these conversations, how do you achieve your energy goals, as an individual or as an have a goal? You just have to have a goal. You have to understand the metrics. You have to understand what is going on. You have to understand some of the things that Boluwasepe said, things are going to happen within the next 1 or 2 years. You have to stay ahead of it. You have to, start to think in that line. Then you also have to start planning. And that's where design comes in. How are you interacting with your space, your business? How's your business interacting with the space? Is everything done haphazardly, or is everything being done strategically. You know, you're already thinking about your consumption, you're thinking about how your employees interact with the space, you're already thinking about things like that. Then we now come in your equipment technology. What kind of equipment are you using? Are you going to buy? How did Rotimi describe those things? Are you going to go online and just source for some that is going to hurt you in the future? Or are you going to go for tested and trusted solutions that are going to actually help you, solutions like Daikin? And I think one of the things for us, I believe that we've been actually consistent with at Daikin is like we've been trying to address every single opportunity that's requires energy. So I see somebody mentioning MTN. Yes, we're in MTN as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention. So please, you know, but we do not only address big businesses. So I think I want to squash that. We're actually from the single user up onto the industrial user. So we're in Dangote, we're in Nestor. Nestor has their LEED certification with Daikin products on it. That's their energy efficient certification for those that don't know. But we also have the single 1.5. We don't have the 1 horsepower yet. It's coming into the market, which is actually even market driven. There was no requirement for it previously, but right now we're seeing that there are some small shops and things like that that require this. So within the next couple of months, we're also bringing that into play. We're also understood there are certain things that we do at Daikin that are simply market driven, even up to our packaging, because it's only here in Nigeria that we will see somebody that will carry their AC and put it on the back of an Okada. But we understand that. And so definitely at Daikin, we had to revise and look at the way we package our air conditioning. So all Daikin air conditionings come with special packaging just because of that. So we do certain things that are environmentally driven, but we also do things that are market driven. So we actually listen to the market. Us partnering with Arnergy was something that had to happen. In fact, it should have happened years before, but we're glad that it has happened now. You know, we're progressively doing a lot of things in that light, offering solutions for gated communities, offering different kind of solutions, because we just understand that, look, things are going to shift. And that's why I said, Boluwashop, are you sure you don't need to come and speak with my team? Come and tell them so that you can put fire on them that, look, things are happening. Yeah, because things are going to change within the next couple of years. And, you know, for us, we try to stay ahead of it. And I think we've been doing that right now. You know, even with the training centers, everything is all free on Daikin for us, because, you know, we need the installers to be ahead of their game. You know, sorry, I can't see. Okay, so I think that will be it. Have a goal, understand how people are going to interact with your space, understand the different technologies and solutions that are available to you, understand, and then keep recalibrating. Don't, you know, once it's done, don't just say, oh, it's done, you know, keep recalibrating, you know, to get better. I think Arnergy has a metering device to a measuring device. I think they can actually do it remotely, if I remember. Yeah, because the results for the test that was done for us was sent to us via that. Daikin is in every country in Nigeria. So please, I'm sorry if you are getting the impression. It's just because we are here in Lagos right now. We're in Abuja. I know Arnergy too is supporting us on some projects in Abuja as well. We're in Port Harcourt, we're in Enugu, we're in all states in Nigeria, trust me, Kaduna, and interacting across all the lines, from architects to developers to energy providers. We're just, you know, to engineers. Well, typically we've been interacting with engineers, but we're seeing that, you know, there's more to be done. So we had to expand our reach, move to architects, move to developers, move to the industrial sector. So we're really doing a lot. So I think all information that is required, I don't want to get distracted by the chatbot. So I think that's the best way to go about it. Have a goal and just, you know, stay focused and keep doing what you're doing and choose Daikin. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Sansi. And also, Boluwashop, if you have any contributions, just end this question, and then we can move on to some of the interactions from the audience. However, in the interest of time, we may not be able to address all of the questions that have been asked, but we will definitely get back to you privately, either via email or whatever contact details you've provided. I'm sorry, I believe I should have said Rotimi and not Boluwashop. Yes.
You're going to make Boluwashop do double work.
Yeah.
So she has great points. Yeah, so maybe let me say the inverse of what I said earlier. In 2023, we should be Naira wise and Kobo foolish. I think that's what we're gonna do, right? So I'm gonna be very militant about getting out there, producing a lot of learning material, and hopefully we can invite some of you to the small maybe studio space that we'll get, and do video blogging that really comes to a grassroots level of helping people explain, nice, simple slides and say, this is what a petrol generator looks like, or a diesel generator. This is how many liters it consumes when you use it at this level, and this level. We're talking about 800 Naira per liter for diesel. You run it for this many hours as a business, as a home, so on and so forth. This is what you're going to spend this year. By the way, it's going to go up probably another 15, 20% next year. This is what you're going to spend over the course of 2 or 3 years, right? That's money that you can use to power your children's education. You can use to hire staff. You can use to be more productive. You can have the power to be what you need to be, right? Now, if you compare that and you cap that with the solar system, even if you have to make either an outright purchase or you have to take a little bit of pain in order to create a hedge that shields you from the increasing rate of fuel prices and diesel prices. It is the smartest investment that you can make to create wealth for yourself in Nigeria, is to hedge yourself against the rising energy factors. As was mentioned earlier on, 30, 40, 50% of household income and business income and revenues are going towards this operating cost, right? So you need to actually do something about it yesterday and not tomorrow. It doesn't matter whether you're a small micro enterprise, retailer that's selling cold drinks, or you're a big factory. I heard a bunch of factories had to shut down or furlough or something of that nature because they can't operate anymore because the cost is becoming too ridiculous, right? And I think what we can do for sure from a Sunfire perspective, we're working tirelessly and religiously to reduce but all of that is useless if you don't also get aggressively out there into the market and educate the consumers and help them better understand why they should take this chance. And then we all have to make sure that we also reduce the cost of equipment as much as we can, because that's a major contributing factor, as we saw. And then we have to make sure that the best aftercare services are there for trust. Trust is the currency that these people are operating on. They're literally saying, look, I'm not sure whether I can trust you, whether it's worth it to invest this much money in something when I've heard all these stories. So if we can overcome the trust barrier altogether, Arnergy, Sunfire, Daikin, everyone on this call being prolific about increasing trust with customers, having customer experience centers, showing them that this building is running on solar, this is what your experience is going to be like, so on and so forth. I think a lot of people, once they see this change in petrol prices, the diesel one has already happened, but there's still more to come because Nigeria has the lowest prices in the region. They're talking about 1,500 Naira equivalent in other places, right? So that means there's still more to go. So if we need to make investments today as consumers to protect ourselves from the future. And so if you're investing in calorie-wise or any of those types of things and you think it makes sense to save in order to build wealth, I think one of the shortest cuts to building wealth for your businesses, for your households, is to make the transition to quality, trusted solar solutions. And we are here to help, obviously, to make the cash flow burden lighter for you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Rotimi. I'm in complete agreement with you. As I mentioned, we're a little bit short of time, so we wouldn't be able to take all the questions in the chat box, but we will just take a few. And like I mentioned before, the ones that we can't answer, the answers will be sent to the contact details that you have provided. A general question that I can see is that, yes, the session is being recorded. It's also on YouTube. So either you get a link sent to your email address at the end of the session, or you can just search it up on YouTube, whatever is more convenient for you. And I will direct this question, or well, it is for Rotimi anyways. You have Ignatius who asked, how can other installation companies with uses reliable equipment, credible brands as size as Arnergy work with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we either way would encourage you to definitely get trained by Arnergy. We actually hosted such a training with Arnergy a few months ago because it's one of the main equipments that we are comfortable financing. So don't work against the tide. But in any event, if you go to sunfi.co, so sunfi.co, and you click on the partners page there, it's a very simple registration process. So you can register your solar business. You can register as an installer. I saw someone from Just Plateau that mentioned that they're an installer. How can we collaborate? So once you register your business, we will then engage you very quickly to understand the quality of solar installer that you are, the type of equipment that you work with, and how you bring a good energy transition to end consumers. And if you qualify, meaning that you have good competence, good skill sets, you've been doing this for a bit of time, and we rate you in terms of where you are in that competency framework, we will then approve you into the system. Once you're in the system, you can set up your products and you can go to town in requesting financing on behalf of your end consumer. So you essentially become an agent. And we'll be here to support you every step of the way. But I would encourage you, make sure you get trained by Arnergy because your systems are on our system. We're very comfortable financing it. And you yourself will have less headache because they have a good 24/7 aftercare support. The last thing you want is a customer reaching out saying, this thing is not working. And then the OEM or the manufacturer is not there to back you up. It's one of the biggest headaches for solar installers in the country. Don't put yourself in that situation. So that would be my recommendation to the collaborator. And of course, Fadera, you can send us any contact details of people that are interested to get financing from us for your systems or any of your systems.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Rotimi. And I hope, Ignatius, your question was answered. I would like to direct this next question to Boluwashope. So we have a question from an anonymous attendee who asks, how do solar energy providers solve the energy challenge of the people considered to be the lower class? I mean, those people that pay estimated bills as they do not have autonomy to conserve their energy usage. Sorry, hi, Boluwashope, did you catch that?
No, I didn't. Can you please come again?
Okay, so one of the questions from the audience that I would like to direct to you is, how do solar energy providers solve the energy challenge of the people considered to be in the lower class? I mean, those people that pay estimated bills as they do not have the autonomy to conserve their energy usage.
So with estimated billing, we're now talking areas that are grid connected but do not have meters already installed. Just as I think Rotimi mentioned, there are people that are going completely off the grid. And I think those people will benefit from going completely on a solar system. So getting a solar system from Arnergy or any company that has a Lighting Global certified system. That makes more sense because with estimated billing, what happens is it's really just a guess of how much you're using. They classify you either as a business or as an individual household. They look at the size of your house and say, okay, there are 6 apartments here. They have to at least use 300,000 every month. So each apartment is going to be 50,000, even if it's just one person living in that apartment, for instance. So for such an individual, it makes a lot more sense for you to get your own system and say, oh, I don't even use NEPA at all. That's going to be a lot more cost effective for you. The thing with estimated billing is, to be honest, they can come the next month and increase it and say, actually, all of you should be using 600,000, irregardless of how much energy they've actually provided you that month and say that your bill is now 100,000. So for customers that are completely off, are on estimated billing, I think really and truly, I mean, a lot of things I said was with the assumption that you have a meter in place, because a lot of what has been done is discos are now very aggressive of getting more households and businesses metered, because that's how they secure their revenue, especially for prepaid meters. But if you don't have a meter, and I know the queues for getting a meter are very long, and meters themselves are actually quite expensive, because it's a product that we have to pay for, and there's a lot of back and forth on should the landlord pay for it or the tenants or things like that. To remove yourself from all that argument and from not knowing what your bill is going to be the next month, get an off-grid system and go get a solar system and go off-grid completely.
Thank you for that, Bolajope. Thank you for that answer. And the last one I think we'll be able to take from the audience is from Hamza Adisa. Apologies if I've mispronounced. So his question or her question goes, given the plans for decentralization of power generation in the country, what would it take for solar to continue / acquire a share of these efforts for both generation and distribution? What model / approach would work best? And I will leave that open to either any three of you to answer that.
Okay, let me just go a bit and then hand over to everyone else. So I think, to be honest, what we're seeing is really just progression of the market growing. NEPA, before it became privatized, was very centralized, and a lot of things in, if you look at how Nigeria is structured, everything comes from the center. But we're seeing that that model doesn't work, and the discos are highly constrained because they have a capex, they have a cap on how much they can spend in terms of improving the grid or improving their machinery every year. So partnerships were explored in terms of working with mini grid developers to set up specific areas, so power markets and things like that. What we're seeing now is that state governments are actually now going to have the autonomy to say that within our state, we're going to generate and transmit electricity. And that is something that I know, for instance, Lagos State has been very, very active on and very willing, really wants to do. Now, you can wait for the discos, but they have a capex issue. More than likely, what you're going to see a lot of states do. So this is an opportunity for off-grid energy companies, solar companies, to get in contact, get directly in touch with the Ministry of Energy or Mineral Sources in their state and get their bids in. So what you're going to see is, taking a state like Lagos, you're going to have it split up. The discos still own the franchise areas. So you're going to have the discos actually say that this is the area that you are allowed to transmit to or distribute to, and this area will remain ours. And so then there's going to be partnership between the government, the off-grid company, and the disco on the which areas they can go into and how much it's going to be set for. What you're going to see, I'm trying to remember the name right now. What you're going to see is that this can also be an opportunity to say, you as a disco, I as an off-grid energy company, I have the funds to actually set up a mini grid right now. And in another 20 years, you are going to inherit those assets and then continue on after I've already recouped my investment and made the profit that I want to make. Those obviously are longer transactions, take 10 to 20 years, but this is a fantastic opportunity. If you're an off-grid energy company, this is a great time to get in those conversations with governments, get into partnerships with companies that are going to make those bids. And if you're an individual that is a solar installer or you're good at solar sales, this is an opportunity as well for you. Hone down on your training and get in there, because what you're going to see is a lot more people being using solar systems or having to be more energy efficient on solar systems. So you're going to see larger solar projects is what we're going to see. That's from me. I don't know, Zanzi or Rotimi.
Yeah, and I would just echo that. It's impressive that and Odushote and the team are able to work with the government and so on and so forth to really pull that together. When I was at Siemens in my old life, it was something that I had actually tried to work on integrated power projects for Lagos State, and we had the capital and we had the technology, and it just the political environment and the regulatory structure and everything just would not allow it to work. So I would say that I think Lagos State is going to move probably lightning fast with regards to this, because I think they've been looking for something of this nature for a while. That being said, there are all of the other hurdles that always one thing I can say for sure is that working with Siemens, I realized that it wasn't just about access to money and so on and so forth. And there's a whole infrastructure. There are people that are in this value chain that have to make it work, right? So people have to make that system work. I think you will have power projects that come to bear that are examples of what can be done. And as Boluwasepe said, I think there will be territories probably created, and renewable energy providers will probably work and build big power plants that can supply areas, but they need to get paid. If they don't get paid, the thing will not be sustained. Right? So if you start seeing scenarios where you start hearing Lagos State or Eco Disco or someone is owing an international company because they probably will have the money that's partnered with a local company, the whole thing will break down again. And you just have a replication of what is going on at the grid scale now happening at a localized level. But I do think that because Lagos State may have a little bit more control and autonomy, it will be able to, because it's a mega center in the world, it has a very high incentive to make this work. And so let's see what happens. Whatever the case may be, we're going to be here to support, whether it's from a financing perspective or whether it's from supporting consumers with making sure that they have that complementary energy system. Because even South Africa has more power, but people are still needing to transition to solar. So at the very least, backup energy storage will probably be here to stay, at least for a very long time, even if for some reason the generation piece is magically sorted out, for example, in Lagos State. But it would take a lot of time, years. To build one power plant, it takes a couple of years, right? So you're talking about a sequential number of years to actually be able to pull this off. But we'll see some stuff happen there for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Rotimi and Boluwasepe. And any final comments from you, Zansi?
Sorry, my comment will be to the person I think I was asking as regards how are we working with installers. I think somebody on the Q&A. So what we've done at Daikin is to partner with NARAP. That's, I think, the national body for refrigeration and air conditioning in Nigeria. So they're nationwide. So we've been partnering with them and providing these trainings alongside with their members. You know, that's like, I think that was the main body that we were able to see to push that out. But in terms of you know, like the adoption and what we're seeing right now, the possibilities is limitless. You know, Boluwasepe and Rotimi have really extolled what we're going to see over the next few years in terms of government participation and private financing. And you know, I think it's going to be like, I think we're poised already, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen over the next couple of years. So I think that will be it from me, from my side.
Well, thank you very much for that, Zansi, and thank you to all three of you, Zansi, Boluwasepe, and Rotimi, for your time on the call, for that enlightening and engaging session. And thank you to the audience for tuning in. I hope that you have learned a lot. You have followed the conversation, and it's been engaging. As all three of them have mentioned, education on the subject matter is key, and Arnergy and Sunfire have partnered to further this initiative. So we have some installer programs that you can sign up to. We also have other programs like Solar Angels, which you can find out more about on our respective websites, as also look into the Daikin products and all Boluwasepe has shared this morning. I hope it has resonated and stuck with you, and you can apply it to your everyday life. So like I mentioned, all the questions that we couldn't answer, I'm really sorry for that. We will answer them to the contact details that you provided to us. So that being said, I want to thank you once again very much for your time on this discussion today, and I wish you a great day.
All right, thanks, Fadera. Great job. Great job.
Thank you so much, Fadera. Thank you, Rotimi. Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks to Arnergy for this. Okay.
Thank you very much, guys.